Hello, everyone. My name is Julio Ochoa. I'm going to be moderating this session, Esri's design system, designing applications faster with UI kits and components. Just a friendly reminder, this session is fully live, and I'll just pass it over to Brian and get us started. Brian?
Hello, everyone joining over the interwebs. Let's see, let's jump in here. Again, my name's Brian, and I'm going to be co-presenting with Adam. We're on the Esri design system team, and we're going to be going through UI kits and kind of offerings we have there, and the design to developer transition that could be hopefully useful in workflows that you use at your organization. So let's go. All right, so here's the contents. I'm going to go over color, spacing, type, shadows, icons, and components that are in the design system. Then I'm going to do, I'm not going to do design handoff first. I got that out of order. I'm going to do a live demo on Sketch and then Figma. And then I'm going to do a design handoff over to Adam, and he's going to talk about props and theming, other guidelines and resources. So, all right. Calcite. So this is the actual design system name that we have named it. And within it, we have, again, color, spacing, type, shadows. We utilize Tailwind, and Calcite also contains documentation and other components. Okay, so color. This is obviously a hallmark of any design system. The Calcite, we consist of brand, and then everything else you see here, background, foreground, of course, text and borders, and then status colors. And let's go to, and then of course we love Batman. So we also have dark theme colors that are completely themable. For the design system, we utilize Tailwind, and the spacing scale you see on the right. It's based on a 4-pixel grid, but obviously utilizing rims. And the little diagram you see on the left is just a quick way of kind of how you would space things in an imaginary layout. You do spacing 3s and 4s and 5s, and that translates to a 4-pixel increment grid. So super useful, easy to learn, and yeah, it's actually been proven to be really nice. So after that, of course, you got your type. In the design system, we utilize Avenir Next, and we utilize those 4 weights: light, regular, medium, and bold. Of course, in your application, you could use any typeface, but with Calcite, you can actually, I think the licensing is approved to be used through Calcite components, but again, you could use Noto Serif or any other type of, any typeface that's your company's brand or application's, style guide. Nice. Icons. So we got tons of icons, and our UI icon set is also included in the design system, and it's utilized everywhere. Something that our icon team's been working on for I think about 4 years now. It's really impressive. There's 633 concepts, 3 sizes of each. So altogether, there's about 1,900. They're all vector SVG. And you can see level of detail from a 16-pixel 24 to a 32. That one is cool because you get more notches in that little graph. You get a little bit more detail in the mountains and the sun. And as you can see on the bottom, there's tons of icons with tons of different levels of detail and ways to express a tool icon in an interface. Wow. Components. This is the bread and butter. This is everything put together: the type, the color, the spacing, everything, and the icons, of course. On the left, you can see just a sample of, we have 45 components currently with thousands, or I guess hundreds of variations. And if you got really granular, thousands of variations, lots of props. You can turn things on and off, such as helpers or labels. You can swap icons from start to end. You can have multiple items in one component or a single item, like an action bar. And what's really cool is all of these things are translatable and can work right to left for any kind of right to left languages. So all that's considered, and everything's themable. Of course, again, dark theme comes out of the box, but through, of course, through any of the variables, you can change a brand color, etc. On the bottom, where it says small, medium, large, that's kind of showing the 3 scales that each component comes with. So like right there, that button can have a small, medium, and large button, and that goes with anything: small, medium, large alert, small, medium, large radio button, checkbox, and just depending on the space allowance within any given area of an interface, whether that's up to like a marketing level page or a login page, or to a really granular type of, really data heavy table driven interface where you need really small things. So, all right, it's going to be demo time for my end. So I'm going to hop over to Sketch. All right, just to start off before I dig in too deep, we will be launching with these resources on developers.arcgis.com. Right now we have a Sketch UI kit, and the Figma UI kit is completed. We're also going to add that. And I think all that's going to be live on the 22nd of this month. So pretty awesome. This is generally what it will look like. There'll be a little bit of updates because we'll add Figma. And from there, what you would do is you would download it, and in Sketch, you go to your, let's see, preferences here, super easy. And you go here to add library, and you would just add it straight from there, and that would link it. And you could just do components, you could just do the typography, you could just do the UI icons, and you could just do the colors, or any combination of those 4. And all those are shipped within this download here. Super cool. All right, so let me give you a little just sampling of how this would work in Sketch as a designer or designer developer, or whatever title you've given yourself. So I can recreate this button here, which is an actual live component, and I want to recreate this this alert here. So I can kind of show you guys how, let's actually go from here, how the breakdown of the symbols work in the symbol library. So components, so it starts off with light and dark theme. So in this case, I want light theme, and you can see all 45 components here. And everything's broken down in the small, medium, and large. And they have tons of variants within. So in this case, the free floating action button, there are just tons of variants just within that one component. Link, the same thing, not as many, but still lots of variations. So let's go to button. Where are you? There you go. Alphabetical, of course. I want to do a large button. Let's do the clear appearance, and then do danger because I want it to be red. And let's do idle text with icons. There it is. So many variants. Okay, so here obviously it's not quite what I want it to be. So I'm going to take off that left icon here with the symbols overrides. Take that guy off, and I'm going to do delete project. And then I want to have that little trash can icon. So the icon here, I go to again the overrides panel and type in trash. Super fast if you know the name of the icon, but if you didn't know the icon, you can actually filter within this little panel, this little search box. And I want the 24 size. Oh, and it's the gray icon now. So we just change that to since all these libraries are hooked up, super easy. I could type in danger, and that one's good to go now. So now if I wanted to make this alert, I do the same thing. I go to insert, symbols, components, light, alert. Let's do a medium. And I think that's an info. Yep, info is blue. And I want it to be auto dismiss, which would look like this. Actually, yeah. And this one, so I don't want this kind of loud title. I want to just stick to the body. So again, I can go over here. I can remove this symbol, just have the body. And I'm just going to copy paste this over here make it a little quicker for everyone. Paste it in, it auto sizes. If I keep pasting that, it grows to the size of the text. And if I wanted to shrink it, just go over here and it works, and the icon gets centered. So anything that kind of grows or shrinks is all considered with the auto layout within Sketch. And if I were to wanting to do that in Figma, I could do the same thing. where's my Figma? Here it is. So same new program, same thing I'm going to do here. But Figma has a little different workflow. Sometimes I think Figma is a little bit quicker in this regard. So say if I wanted my button, bring it in, and everything is in this overrides panel here, and it's using, I think it's called variants in Figma. Super good UX. They did a great job. And I want on my light mode. I want to do a large button. I want it to do danger. Let's keep it idle. Type. Yep. Let's leave it. Where's my appearance? Oh yeah, here it is. Clear. And then I want to add my icon. So Figma has, you can do hidden elements. So in this case, I want to, that's the wrong one. This button here. I want my right icon and here. So I want to say delete. And then you just drill in to this guy, and I'd want to do trash again. Boom, boom. And that way, and Figma's cool because it retains the color of the previous icon. So you don't have to do what you did in Sketch. And then same thing with alert. Super quick. Want that in there. This guy, oh, gotta go here. Title. Hide that guy. Copy that. Bam. And then again, it's responsive, super good. Oh, if I wanted to make this have no icon or make it auto dismiss, I want it to be large, and maybe I want it to be a success version, so the green version, which is cool. Really super quick in Figma, and those decisions can always be made retroactive in Figma, which is really awesome. Let me jump back into Sketch here and kind of demo like maybe a more real world application of how to use this. So here's a built interface that me and my developer are working with, and I need to add an action button that says something about reporting a bug if the user sees a bug, to kind of help out the team who's working on this product. So again, I would go here to insert, and I would go to symbols, components, light, and again, I want to go to this free action. It's floating action button. I'm going to go medium because that's kind of the default size, and I'm going to go solid and neutral because I don't want it to be too loud. And I'm going to place that guy right here. Take that out, and then this is pretty cool because we actually have a bug icon. So debug 16, which is really awesome. I want to say report a bug. And then I would deliver something like this to a developer. But I just got a Teams message, and this component here with the graph was coming out of the JS API, and we can't do light theme, and our deadline's tomorrow. So he said it's going to look something more like this. So it's a dark theme element, and it's like, okay, we want to change our interface to kind of match that. And we already have a dark base map, which looks super cool. So again, all these components are in light and dark mode out of the box. So just to save some time, so I'm not switching all the components and just spending the day on that, I'm just going to slide over here. Again, all the same components, just in dark theme, super cool. So it helps designers like me work really fast, and especially quick decisions for theming stuff is awesome. And just to demonstrate that too, I can show how to change brand theme really quick in Sketch. And you can do the same thing in Figma. So this is, say this is the company's brand color, this kind of light electric teal. I would just go up here and change my brand colors. And then I click update. And then my whole interface now has that nice teal, super modern, really cool looking, looks nice on dark theme. It's worth mentioning, all the Calcite components are AA accessible for contrast ratio, which is just super nice out of the box, and nothing. So it's something you wouldn't have to worry about using it. Yeah. So from there, I'm going to hand it over to Adam. In a perfect world, I would obviously redline these things and show them exactly which component to use and hand that over on some type of spec sheet. But I think you guys know that drill, and I'm going to pass it over to Adam. I think you're muted, Adam. From the top.
Sorry about that, folks. Yeah, this app might look familiar. We had used this during the plenary. It was built by Ann Fitz here at Esri, and it's a great example of some really cool base maps, the JS API technology, Calcite components, and this visualization, which is brought in from charts.js. So you can kind of see we've taken that, we've applied the Calcite layout concept to it, rearranged a few things, and you can also see what Brian was talking about, where this charts.js chart is coming in with a black background. And for the sake of this demo, we're not able to change that. So on the right here, I have kind of a list of tasks that we're going to work through. And it's a great example of how the props and attributes that Brian was talking about are actually really easy to configure in code. So his design requirements here, along with a couple of other ones that have come up in this fake demo, are great to illustrate that. Before we jump in, this is not really meant to be a technical demo, but I want to go over a few kind of terms and go over what Calcite components are and how to use them at a really high level. So Calcite components, they are basically the web component implementation of our design system. We've chosen a pretty agnostic framework called Stencil.js as our tool chain to build them. With some caveats, they're really easy to use out of the box. And as Stencil.js says, they generate standards compliant web components and can be used without a framework because they're just web components. Now, there are some cases where that's not quite as easy in practice as they make it sound, but we have some ways to get around that. And for the most part, these are pretty plug and play into your app. So they're really exciting to use as a developer. Right now, you can import them via NPM on package, and soon they'll be hosted on the Esri CDN, like the JS API and other SDKs. So again, this is a very high level overview just so that we can go over some terms that you'll see in the code as I introduce these updates that Brian has passed over. So props are custom attributes or properties, and that will change depending on the language you're writing these in, if these are camel cased or not. So these are the primary method of configuration. In these examples, you can see that this is going to be a round button with appearance of outline. And Brian showed how easy that is for a designer to kind of configure in their own and then pass off to a developer to implement exactly as they want it. And it also makes it easy for developers to maybe not need that designer for certain projects where these things are already available, which is pretty rad. So this is another example. You can have Boolean props. So disable close button, for example, on a Calcite modal, as well as docking it on mobile and making the width of large. So these are really easy ways to configure our components without having to write our own styles or functionality. The last thing that we're going to cover in this demo, and again, there's way more to explore here, and you can check this out in the documentation site when it's released, is the concept of a slot. And slots are containers that we let you place any kind of content in, but we help you out a little bit. So in this case, we'll be positioning a floating action button within a panel. And this usually is kind of a hassle to do as a developer because you need to have a containing div, you need to set all these positions on it. And what this slot does here is allow us to kind of handle that for you. So they're a really easy way to interact with content that's a child of a larger component while taking away some of the hassle associated with that. So I'm going to jump over to CodePen here. We'll be looking at a version of this right alongside the code. And if this is too small, just let me know in the chat and I'll try to increase the size if I can. But you can see this is Code Sandbox. So we have a preview of our app here, which should match this with some collapsed divs. And this is our single page kind of static app here. I'll note that there is some logic for the JS API map and some styling. These are kind of contained within project files that aren't relevant here. And you can see that we're importing the JS API chart.js and Calcite components in the head of our document. Important to note here is that we're for this demo tying to a specific beta version of Calcite components. But this will be available in production on an Esri CDN shortly. It should be at the end of the month. Okay, I see your comment there about font size. Is that any better? We might lose a little bit of this preview here, but is that easier to see the font? I think that might be as large as I can go without losing this preview. So hopefully this will show up a little better in the slides afterwards of the recording. So let's start going through some of these design changes. You'll see some things commented out here, and for the sake of demo, I've just commented them out, and we'll add those as we go. So you can see the layout of this app here is pretty standard for a Calcite app. We have a lot of components that are used to position and lay out our components. So over here on the left is a Calcite shell panel. Over here on the right is another one that's detached. So you can see how these kind of come together in really simple DOM elements. So let's get started here. I apologize for that zoom. I think that kind of happened because we're zoomed in so much here. So our first task is to add that floating action button. And I've had a few versions of it that are commented out here. The first one I will do is this. And it's as simple as saving and reloading. So I'll preview it here just because it's a little hard to see on that small screen. But as you can see, we've added a fab. It might not be the fab that our designer wanted. As you can see, it has a red border and the icon is a banana. And that's not exactly what he asked for. So we can come over here into our code once again. And I apologize for this preview. I think it's just easier to read the text like this. You can see that the icon banana has been set here, and that's not what he said, right? He said he wanted it to be a bug. So we'll change that to debug, and we'll get rid of this color. That wasn't needed, and I must have copied the thing erroneously. So let's go ahead and save this. The button should begin to look a little bit more like what we were asked to do with reported bug. And the cool thing about slots here is that because this is positioned for us, we don't have to worry about setting any kind of containers to make sure that scrolls. Like that will actually be a floating action button in its truest sense, kind of out of the box. There was another request that came in after Brian had sent that over, and that is to open a modal with some fields to submit a bug report. That wasn't in his designs, but you can see that with this on-click event here and this modal that will soon be uncommented and saved. It should be really easy to open a modal where we submit some kind of information about what's wrong. And we didn't hook up any logic for that, but that's an example of how Calcite component events can be used. We also have custom events, so this is just on click, but they're very easy to integrate into your existing tool set. So that's one task done, and I think we've completed both of those. So we'll go ahead and check those off. And I see that question that came in, which tool are you using for coding with browser? This is just Code Sandbox. It's kind of analogous to CodePen. So it's a cool tool to use to kind of code in the browser like this. So this is the second issue that we're kind of tasked with here. And that is that this charts.js widget has a black background, and again, for the purposes of the demo, we can't change that. So we need to make sure that at the very least, this panel here renders in dark. And I don't say the whole app yet because I want to illustrate how our dark theme and inheritance works with attributes. I'm going to zoom out momentarily so I could fit some more here. But I can come down here to our detached shell panel, and that is this container right here. And what I can do is add a theme of dark. Save the page, and you can see that everything within this shell panel has the dark theme applied to it. So this looks a lot better. I think our designer will be pretty happy. But I think he had wanted this entire side panel to be dark as well. This looks a little weird with the light panel and the dark base map. So let's go ahead and actually delete this for now. And come up here to the very top level of our Calcite shell. And that is just the container that holds all of our content. So we'll go ahead, we'll apply theme dark, and we'll save. And now our whole app should be in dark theme. And if I come over to our full screen preview and reload, the whole theme should be dark. And that is kind of an example of how inheritance works for attributes. If you put something at the top level of your app, it will propagate down to all children. So it's really easy to set and forget kind of a theme for an entire app. Although it should be noted, if I did want to keep this light for whatever reason, I could have. Cool, so I think those 2 tasks are done. I apologize about the size of this. This is pretty much as large as this will go while still allowing me to show this side panel here. So our next task is to update the theme to use the brand color for our fake company here that we're working for. And another requirement actually came in after that over the wire, which is that we need a certain component to be of a different color. So without getting into the weeds on how this is done within our components, what we do is expose a set of CSS variables that you can actually override. And there's a kind of limited set, but the main ones you'd be interacting with are our UI brand. So we've taken this color that our designer requested. We've set this variable in the body. And to be clear, I could also set this directly on Calcite shell, but I wanted to also apply to the modal. So I'm going to set this override just on the whole body. You might see this above below switch. This is an example of targeting a specific component. Because when you switch this and this turns purple, the designer wanted this switch to be purple within an app that had this as the overarching brand color. So I should be able to save, reload the preview. Did that not work? And doesn't seem to be taking effect right now, but it should be working to change these to, there we go. I had entered the wrong specificity. So as you can see now, the teal brand color has been applied, and this purple switch is being individually overridden. So that's kind of an example of that. Apologies for entering the wrong thing. This is the correct one to target the whole page. And as you can see here, this one is purple and everything else is teal. So that was the last task that Brian had sent over. There was a fake user testing group. And as a result of that, we had another couple of tasks show up. And what folks realized is that it's really hard for our users to see that this is an interactive radius. And what you can actually do is filter and move. And in the case of this bookmark, kind of move this around town. So what we're going to do, the designer has requested that we add a tip, and the component we're going to use for that is a Calcite notice. And I do see the questions about React. I can chat to those at the end for sure. We have some kind of exciting React wrapper stuff for this that should make this even easier. So the task here was to add a notice that let people know that there was something else to do on this map, and that was interact with this. So another example of something that I have kind of pre-built here. I'm going to uncomment it. And as you can see now, there is a, and I can reload here. There's a notice that tells our users to interact with the map, and that they can use the handles to reposition or adjust. So that's an example of one of our components that can be kind of slotted into our existing layout. That's really functional and should be really useful. So I'm going to check that off, but it looks like there's a couple other tasks here, and it seems like they want to use an icon here because maybe they want to draw attention to this. The exclamation point just was not enough. So a cool thing that our components have built in, a lot of them are able to access our Calcite icons directly. Some of them have predefined icons. In this case, you can see that there's a light bulb showing up by default when you use an icon in this color. You can also pass to it one of those 600 plus icon names that Brian alluded to in his slide deck. And the ask from the designer here is to use one that's called pan. So I'll save that. We should be able to see our custom Calcite icon rendered here. And if I reload the app, you can see that what we've created is a lot closer to what the designer wanted. So this is kind of a cool illustration of how design and development can work together, and how Calcite components, props and attributes help facilitate that. And a really familiar and pretty consistent story. So we're excited to get this out there. I know there were some questions that we'll try to answer, and I think we'll kind of open it up to Q&A here if Julio wants to start asking some of those questions of us.
Great. Yeah, thanks, Adam. So one of the main questions was, will this stream be accessible later? So the recording will be available after the session. Let's see, I have a question here for Brian. For the Sketch UI kit, not sure where to download the app. I'm not sure if that's more of like the app, like the Sketch app, or the UI kit. So maybe Brian, you can just talk a little bit.
Yeah. So the Sketch, the app itself, you can, I think it's, is it sketch.com? In any case, just use your browser to search for like the Sketch design application, and it is Mac only. For Sketch, but Figma is cross-platform, so you can actually get the Figma desktop or Figma web app on any platform. But as far as the tools that we shared, that can be downloaded on I think it lives on GitHub right now, and I think maybe you can answer this further, Julio. Maybe it's on GitHub now, but in later this month, it'll be in our documentation site that'll be launching on the 22nd. So that'll be a open public resource there just for downloads. And then XD, right now we don't support Adobe XD UI kit. We don't have a lot of need for that right now. That could be something we definitely add in the future. Just currently we do not.
Great. I have a question here for Adam, and I'm just going top to bottom. What tool are you using to get the circular geofence with radius?
Hey, I think that's from James. Great question. I would have to check with Anne, who built this app. I actually just copied in her JS API code. And I can actually touch on another question here. Can we break the UI into different file? Yes, absolutely. This was just a very high level example of what this looks like in a static app. You can actually integrate Calcite components into basically any front-end framework, including React and Angular and Vue and Preact and Ember. It was a little out of scope for this, but there are some great sessions about that you probably can check out that were recorded earlier this week as well. Yeah, great question. And I think that applies to a lot of the questions that we're getting about React. Right now, Calcite components work reasonably well in React. There's a few workarounds that we have to do for their synthetic event system, but we're working very hard to get a React specific wrapper out there. So stay tuned, and hopefully we'll have some news about that over the next few months.
Great. There was also a question about, let's see, can you make a custom pop-up with buttons?
Hey, yeah, Matthew, great question. So right now, the pop-up configuration would be handled in the JS API. There's a big effort within the API to begin leveraging Calcite components. I can't speak to whether or not you could add one of our buttons to that externally. So you might want to check in the Ask the Experts channel for that product, but they should be using Calcite components within the next few months, kind of under the hood. I don't know if that answered your question, but if you want to find out more about pop-ups, I think the JS API Ask Your Experts could help there.
Okay, there's another question here about how does Calcite Components handle errors like text fields, a text field that is required. Maybe that's one for you, Brian. Or
Yeah, I can show that real quick.
Yeah, and then I can talk to how that works in implementation.
Right. Yeah. Do you want to go for that while I'm gonna show the visual here?
Sure. Yeah. Another great question, Matthew. Under the hood, our components render just regular native HTML inputs. So if you want to add a validation method to a form, you can do that. And then based on what happens there, you can either display one of our errors, which we have components called a Calcite input message, or you can also use the browser default validation if you want to do it that way. So they're super flexible. They should be able to be used as a native input with the additional helpers that we have, like this validation field that you can kind of display. So if that doesn't answer your question, feel free to post a follow-up.
Right, and there's different types of errors in that Calcite message. There's the warning, what you see with the yellow. You can actually do a success, or even just a hint, an info if the field requires some about or something like that. But yeah, generally, yeah, a lot of that stuff comes out of the box.
Great, yeah, thanks for showing that demo, Brian. Another question: where will it be available after the session? I'm assuming this is maybe more towards like the I guess we can answer both, like the UI kit and then the actual code.
Yeah, I can handle that. So our documentation for this should be going live at the same time of the next JS API update, which I believe is at the end of the month. So our developer documentation will be available then, and the links to the UI kits should be available at the same time.
Great. Okay.
Yeah, I see that question that just came in from James. Yeah, so that's great that you brought up Calcite React. We've been working with them to kind of make sure that these two projects are in lockstep and alignment. And as Calcite Components adds a React wrapper, we'll probably be working even closer with them. We have plans to add a nav component in some form this year. I don't know if it will include the account logic that Calcite React currently has for their nav. But if you want to follow up after the session on that GitHub, if you're already familiar with it, that's a great spot, or reach out directly to me.
Great, thanks, Adam. Okay, so someone asked if we can share the slides after. Yeah, I think we can definitely do that. We'll just need to figure out the form or the place where those would live, and we'll share those out.
Yep, and just to tack on there, we hope to have examples like this app on the documentation site of pretty common app layouts and use cases for JS API, as well as static apps that aren't using a map. So these should be really easy to kind of copy paste and then run with, and those should be up within a few months, if not sooner, on the doc site.
Yeah, and we'll even have things such as do's and don'ts, writing guidelines for certain components, some accessibility, tab order stuff, tab navigation, I guess. So yeah, there's a lot coming for that. It's pretty exciting.
Yep, and I can hop onto some of these questions that just came in. Thinking about having drawers in the design system, I think that's definitely something we're looking at. We had it in past iterations of Calcite, so I think it's a matter of time before both the drawer and the nav kind of make their way back in. I know folks in this question area has reached out about that. So if not React, what should we use? I don't want to dissuade anybody from using these with React. They work, and we use them on the doc site with React. So there's a few extra steps that you have to take, but it's not overwhelming. And when we have that specific wrapper, it will be a first-class citizen in React. So I don't mean that to dissuade anybody from using these with React. It'll be a better story soon. But as far as what else you can use it with, it really, we have a library of examples from Preact, React, Vue, Angular, Ember, kind of across the board. So they should work with just about everything.
Cool, thanks, Adam. Another question came in here. If you want to update an existing site to Calcite, will it be a drop-in replacement in most cases?
Yep. It depends. I think as we just touched on, there's a few things that aren't available as drop-ins yet. So as we get the nav and the drawer in probably over the next year, that will be an easier one. We're also working to expose some of these underlying CSS classes through Tailwind. So that would be a more direct drop-in replacement for those familiar with Calcite Web. But that will be something that we publish over the next few months, if not year here.
Great, thank you. Okay. I don't think there's any more questions in the pipeline, so maybe we can, yeah, I'm trying to see here. Yeah, I do, there is another question here about how is this different from Calcite Web?
Yeah, that's a good question as well. So similarly to what was just discussed, there are still a few aspects of Calcite Web that haven't been replicated. I think the most apparent to folks that are familiar with Calcite Web will probably be the lack of grid and utility classes. So as we integrate Tailwind and we have some underlying kind of utility libraries that we'll expose, that should be a little bit easier of a transition. But for the most part, Calcite Web was a little bit more focused on editorial and marketing content in that it had a lot of page layout helpers. And Calcite components are much more focused on building interactive apps. So a lot more Lego piece kind of control and input components.
Great. Another question is, where do you get live support for Calcite?
I think that's actually a question for you, Julio.
So I can answer it. So when Calcite launches, like Brian mentioned, on April 22nd, the main integration or documentation is going to be on developers.arcgis.com. So on the 22nd, if you go there and you type for Calcite, you should be able to access all the documentation for Calcite, along with other information if you've seen any of the other sessions, where you can access like the actual components and play with the code snippets and props that Adam showed. But there will also be a community page that you can click on for support. So that would be there when Calcite launches on the 22nd. And obviously we also have like our Calcite components repository, the actual repository with the code. So there will also be documentation there you can find like in the wiki or just through the general work that happens in that repository. All right, I don't see any more questions. So if there are any more questions that you guys do want to ask in the Ask an Expert section under Web Developer or Web Development, you can ask more questions there, and those will get routed to us, and we'll be able to go in there and answer those questions. Other than that, oh, another question just came in. Panel supported. Panel supported.
Panel supported. We have a component. Oh, this might be in reference to Calcite Web previously had a component called Panel. We do have a component called Panel in the current library. It might be slightly different than what you expect if you're coming from Calcite Web, but it was used in the demo that I just showed, and it's basically a container for content within a sidebar panel. So that hopefully answers the question. If not, feel free to follow up with another follow-up.
Okay, so there's some more questions. Again, Ask an Expert web development channel. You can ask questions there and we'll get to them. Other than that, thanks again, everybody, for attending and your questions. And we're really happy to get this out there and excited to see what you build with the Calcite design system. Have a good conference, everyone.
Yep. Thanks, everyone. Have a good one.